Hi, hello and welcome everybody to a new build video from Shaxu. Very cool POG build. Jokes aside, honestly, one of my favorite league starters ever. Very smooth progression, very nice, cost efficient, SSF friendly, and this is an update. Enjoy. Damage is good. Like and subscribe. We have 12 things to talk about. I'll try to cover them as quickly as possible without getting into too much detail, but I'll try to explain everything as I go. First of all, this character was a starter, right? This was not meant to be pushed to it like the maximum limits of possibilities. It delivered everything that it was meant to deliver, and it was even a pleasant surprise. It was better than expected. It has decent defense, it has decent damage, and it has decent clear speed, right? It never was meant to specialize in one particular area, and it is just nice in all of them. So let's go to the next point: brand recall and Swiftbrand. So technically this build, you could say that it is a brand recall build, because yes, your brands do damage by themselves, but the bulk of your damage comes from clicking brand recall and activating the brands once, because they overlap, and all of those overlaps, you know, well, deal damage. And you can do that pretty quickly, pretty frequently. It's an instant skill. So to maximize damage, technically you want to increase, or rather decrease the cooldown of this skill as much as possible, and then get the hit of the brand to as high as possible numbers. And then for clearing, right, so I was planning to use faster casting and Swiftbrand support because it gives you more activation frequency. However, this support gem is just, it's so bad. Like, the difference, like, it's not worth it. Okay, it's just not worth it. The duration loss is too big because your brand recall becomes clunkier to use because you're not recalling all your brands all the time. And just having haste with faster casting is, for clearing, it's more than enough. So just better hits with cruelty. You can change cruelty into empower level 3. That would be like 5% more damage, and then empower level 4, well, that's like 15% more damage than this. So that would be better, but I did everything on this and it was fine. I didn't really need more damage, except for like uber bosses. Then yeah, you probably want more damage, but whatever, right? Okay, so next thing is shield. The shield is a cool one. So I finally managed to craft the shield. It is pretty hard to get a shield like this, and I spent, well, okay, I did 566 attempts crafting with double resonator fossils, which is more fire, more life, no call, no defense, right? Scorch and pristine. Yeah, I mean, to craft a good shield is pretty easy with this method, but to craft a great shield is very hard because it's just unlikely to hit what you want, right? The good combination, the good rolls and all that, it's very hard. So this is the shield that I ended up with. It's not ideal still, but this is very, very good. It is a mixture of defense and damage. So the sap enemies, when you block their damage, it is from a heist base, and sapped enemies deal 6% less damage for 4 seconds. That's pretty nice defensively. Then I also get recover 5% life when you block. So this is like an Aegis Aurora at home. It's like not as good, but technically the same thing. And then we have some life, we have some spell damage, +1 fire spell skill gems, and chance to deal double damage full focus. So these mods are like, this is a lot of damage, and it is worth going for this, but it's pretty tricky, right? So to maximize the chance of getting the life gain on block, which is an influence modifier, you have to get an influence. So there are two options. It is Warlord and Shaper, and you cannot get Shaper on a heist base, right? Like naturally it does not happen, so you have to force it. And how you do that is you get any exalted orb, any influence, right? The one that is cheapest. You just buy that. You buy a base level 84 plus, preferably 86, because then you have the chance of hitting everything. Stop, no, actually don't do that. You want level 68, because that's the level requirement for life gain on block, and that gives you the best chance of rolling +1 fire and life gain on block together. You do sacrifice a few tier 1, tier 2 rolls here and there, but the important things, which we want, best chance, yeah, so technically better. And then you go into your Horde crafting station, search for influence, randomize the influence types on an influence normal, magic, or rare item, as well as reforging, whatever, right? So previously, before the nerfs to the costs, this was like 10,000, I think, and that is not worth it. But at 1,000, it is worth it, trying to change the influence into a shaper influence, and then that reduces... It goes from like 700, 1 in 700, to 1 in 220 or something like that, to hit block and +1 fire. That is what I was going for. It's like, what, 20-25 chaos per try, and it's on average like 5. So 125 chaos just for that. But it makes crafting a lot easier, a lot more likely to hit good stuff, and a lot more likely to hit something that you can sell, because you can get like +1 totem. Okay, I am starting to digress. Let's focus on the shield that I have, and it is a really good shield. It is a well-rounded beast in itself, because it's a lot of damage, a lot of recovery, a lot of defense. It's just great. Alright, so let's move to the next point, which is Arcane Surge. So Arcane Surge, because we're using this helmet, Eldritch Battery, and we are utilizing Eldritch Battery in a very significant way for this build, which means that we don't really want to transition into anything else, right? So Eldritch Battery protects mana and makes us spend Energy Shield instead of mana, which means that Arcane Surge cannot be procced from our skills, because that requires to spend mana, and we're not spending mana. So the only other option, well, not the only option, but the best option, the cheapest, the simplest option, is to gain Arcane Surge on hit with spells Ring Implicit. And it's not too expensive. Level doesn't really matter much. You just get that when you get Arcane Surge. That gives you 10% more spell damage. It's pretty significant. Then the next point is Frenzy Charges. So Frenzy Charges also give a lot of attack speed, cast speed, and damage, just global damage, right? But we don't really have a good source of getting that, except for this implicit on the body armor. Get a Frenzy Charge every 14 seconds. So normally, Frenzy Charges and every charge in the game last for 10 seconds. But if we take this mastery right here, 100% increased charge duration, right? Now that becomes 20 seconds, which means that getting a charge every 14 seconds would maintain your charges. And as you can see here, I'm at maximum charges all the time. It is going down, 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 and boom, 20 seconds, right? So after a few seconds, well, not a few seconds, a few tens of seconds in the map, in the boss fight, whatever, like you will reach maximum frenzy charges, and that's nicer for your shield charge, nicer for your cast speed, damage, you know, like it's just a very nice, well-rounded beast in itself. All right, the next one is Permanent Anger or Zealotry. So it depends on what Megalomaniac you manage to get. If you cannot get a Megalomaniac, then you just use a Reservation Small Cluster with 2 passives and get, well, Righteous Path then would be better to get, because you would preferably run permanently Zealotry and then swap in Anger just for like single target stuff. If you get Anger Reservation, you use Anger permanently, and if you get Zealotry Reservation, you use Zealotry permanently, and then the other one you use for the gem swap. And let's talk about the gem swap. So for mapping, what I like to do is I like to run Divine Blessing Haste, faster casting in the links, and that gives a lot of cast speed, a lot of speed, movement speed, attack speed, right? It just feels very, very nice for mapping. And then for single target, I usually just swap in Zealotry instead of Haste. Click that, 20-second, 19-second duration, and that works wonders. However, I also like for big single target, if I really need that, I swap out Conk Effect instead of faster casting in the main links, and that, you know, reduces the cast speed by quite a bit. But for single target, you don't really need to be spamming these too much, because your damage comes from Brand Recall anyway most of the time. So there's that. And what I used to do was I just used to run them right here in my inventory. So I would just do this little quick swap, and boom, we're good to go. Not too complicated, pretty simple, but good to know. And then Dexterity, right? So if you want to use Haste, you need a lot of Dexterity, because it requires a lot of Dexterity, right? And normally we are not pathing through Dexterity or anything like that, so this is pretty hard to get. However, there are 2 options for this Dexterity acquisition. So one of the options that I chose to go for, because I managed to get this, I think I got it for like 5 divines or something, and it gives me a lot of dexterity. It also gives me a lot of damage. It covers my dexterity needs completely, and now I'm leveling my faster attacks as well. And yeah, It's really good, really good. However, the other option, if you cannot get an amulet like that, is to use, well, I don't have it right here. Let's go into the POB real quick. A jewel like this, Fluid Motion, that transforms strength into dexterity. So if you have more strength that you can sacrifice, because you also have to keep in mind that you want to balance your strength and intelligence to be roughly the same to get the most amount of crit chance out of this ascendancy point. But let's just focus on the main thing which matters, which is dexterity, right? So you would go for Fluid Motion here, or I don't remember the name of the jewel, but basically the other jewel that transforms intelligence into dexterity instead of strength, right? And you put it here. That's the same amount. You get 50 and 20 something from the jewel itself, and that covers your dexterity. Well, this is a bit different, right? You will have pretty much the amount of dexterity that you need, and you will be able to run your juicy haste. All right, next, so chaos resistance. I actually haven't seen anyone really use this craft, but it's actually really good. If you have an open suffix and you don't need to cap your other resistances, this is really, really good. The other resistance that I get is from these hybrid mods called Chaos. Here we have called Chaos on the helmet as well. Then we have a Death Rush ring, which is absolutely incredible for mapping. And well, implicit could be divine a bit better. I just ran out of divine blessings, or well, not divine blessings, just normal blessings. So yeah, this could be more. And I don't have chaos resistance anywhere else on the gear. And look at this. I'm at 2 positive chaos resistance and 44 above for damage over time stuff. And then if I use my chaos resistance flask, I'm capped against poisons and stuff and chaos legions. And then for hits, I have 37, and it feels really good. I never died from poisons or really chaos damage. I mean, you can get an alter mod with like 100% physical damage as extra chaos, and then you start feeling it, especially if you run out of your flask and then you get hit by a lot of hits, and yeah, you can die to chaos damage. But other than that, this feels very, very nice. Right, and then talking about flasks, might as well cover the flash charge and crit. So I chose flash charges on crit mod with something else that is useful for the build, because, well, it's good, right? You get charges while just hitting bosses and stuff. And then I also have all of them enchanted with the used when adjacent flask is used. So when I click my Quicksilver flask, boom, all of them activate at once. And then as I'm mapping, they regain charges, right? And then this one has reused at the end of this flask effect. So when it ends, it will activate again, and it will fill up and then activate again and fill up and activate again. And it would, you know, it just automates the flasks in a very nice way. And yeah, it's nice. It's actually nice. Right, so the next thing is evasion. Our block is very high. We have 70-75 block, but this block is with glancing blows, right? And glancing blows makes us still take damage, and even though I have this life gain on block, we still take quite a bit of damage. So getting evasion is pretty good, because that's a chance for attacks to not deal damage at all. And with just a flask, it's like, I think 15-18% to evade attacks. And then I have another little thing that actually juices it up quite a bit, which is smoking remains. So 10% chance to create a smoke cloud on kill. This basically leaves a cloud of blind, like enemies that are stepping into that cloud, they're blinded, or if, well, basically, yeah, that increases our evasion a little bit. So it goes to like 22 or something. It's important, but then again, not that important. It's fine if you don't have it. And the last point that I want to talk about is phasing. So phasing is very important. If you don't have a jewel with phasing, you probably want to drop one of those flasks, and I was not using the sulfur flask until I was able to get a good jewel with phasing on kill and corrupting blood. This is what I have right here. It's a pretty nice jewel. Basically life crit multi, phasing, and corrupting blood. And that's good.
It is good. It is very good. It's very nice, actually. Catch you in the next one. Bye.